The final toast. The Grand Stellar Council chamber had been designed to inspire humility. Its ceiling was a living map of the galaxy, stars pulsing softly, nebulae drifting in slow, dignified motion, meant to remind every delegate how small their individual worlds truly were. On this cycle, however, humility was in short supply. Golden light washed over tiered seating filled with representatives of more than 300 sentient species. Silks, chitin, polished scales, and biometal robes shimmered as servants moved between rows, distributing tall crystal flutes filled with luminescent amber liquid. It was not alcohol in a human sense, but a ceremonial compound engineered to be safely consumed by most known biologies. This was not a war council. It was a celebration. At the center dais, High Arbiter Zelvar of the Keth Dominion rose, his elongated form straightening as the chamber gradually fell silent. His species had presided over council matters for nearly 5,000 cycles. Long enough, many believed, to mistake longevity for wisdom. Delegates, Zelvar intoned, his voice carried flawlessly by the chamber's resonance field. We convene today to mark the conclusion of a matter that has troubled this body for far too long. A ripple of approval passed through the chamber. The Sol system, he continued, has been officially reclassified. All long-range quantum beacons are silent. Gravitational scans confirm planetary devastation beyond recovery parameters. Earth designation, human homeworld, is no longer capable of sustaining sapient life. Several delegates exhaled in relief. Others inclined their heads in solemn acknowledgement. No one appeared surprised. Humanity had been a problem. They had arrived on the galactic stage too quickly, advancing from chemical rockets to interstellar capability in a fraction of the time projected by Council evolutionary models. Worse, they refused guidance. They ignored containment treaties, modified civilian technologies into weapons, and, most unforgivable of all, continued to fight even when defeat was mathematically certain. They did not wage civilized war. They burned too hot, murmured a Varelli trade lord to its neighbor, translucent frills fluttering. Every species like that does. Violent ingenuity, replied the neighbor. Always self-terminating. Zelvar raised one slender appendage. Let history reflect that the Council offered Earth compliance, protection, and integration. Humanity declined. They chose isolation. They chose resistance. A low, almost amused sound came from a delegate of the Run Clades, a species that had once sterilized 3 systems in a border dispute. They chose extinction, it said flatly. No one contradicted it. At a discreet console near the lower tiers, Sensor Adept Tiel hesitated. The young analyst's tendrils twitched in unease as fresh data scrolled across her display. Void space fluctuations, faint, irregular, and wrong, were appearing beyond the outer observation envelope. She leaned toward her superior. Honored Overseer, she whispered, I am detecting anomalous distortions outside mapped hyperspace lanes. Pattern coherence is increasing. The Overseer did not look at her. Residual gravitic echoes from Sol's collapse, he replied dismissively. Log it for archival review. Kel obeyed, though her discomfort deepened. The void was not supposed to ripple like that. At the center dais, Zelvar lifted his own flute. Let's be clear, he said. This is not a celebration of death. It is a celebration of stability. The removal of a volatile element from our shared equation. He paused, allowing the moment to settle. To continuity, he declared. To continuity, the chamber echoed. Crystal touched crystal. The ceremonial compound glowed brighter as hundreds of flutes were raised in unison. Some delegates smiled. Others merely looked relieved, as if a long-standing irritation had finally been resolved. Beyond the vast, curved windows of the chamber, the galaxy drifted in serene silence. A nearby blue giant bathed the hull of the council spire in cold light. For a heartbeat, everything was as it had always been, ordered, predictable, controlled. Then the stars bent. Not shifted, not dimmed. They bent inward, as though space itself were drawing breath. The living star map above flickered. Several lights vanished, replaced by spreading voids of absolute black. The chamber lights stuttered, dimmed, then stabilized with an uneasy hum. Conversations faltered. Flutes lowered. Status, Zelvar demanded, his tone sharp. Before anyone could answer, the void outside the windows tore. There was no flash, no hyperspace flare, no warning signature of any known faster-than-light transition. One moment, there was empty space. The next, something vast and angular occupied it. So close, so sudden, that several delegates recoiled instinctively. A ship, then another, and another. They emerged silently, sliding out of nothingness like scars opening in reality. Hulls the size of cities, dark and uneven, their surfaces marked with scorched symbols and layered armor that looked grown rather than built. No running lights, no transponder codes, only presence. The sensor boards across the chamber exploded with alerts. Power readings spiked off scale. Mass shadow warnings screamed as dozens, hundreds, of contacts registered where there should have been none. Kel stared at her display in horror. "High Arbiter," she said, voice shaking. "These vessels are not using hyperspace. They are not using warp. They are not." Her words cut off as a single signal flooded every frequency, overriding all council channels with brutal ease. It was simple, unencrypted, repeating, "Soul lives." Silence fell over the chamber, thick and absolute. High Arbiter Zelvar's flute slipped from his grasp, shattering against the floor. The council had raised a toast to Earth's demise, and the void had answered. The void answers back. 4-3 full heartbeats. The Grand Stellar Council chamber did not move. 300 species, some evolved for combat, some for predation, others for endless patience, stood frozen as the impossible filled the void beyond the windows. The human ships did not advance. They did not maneuver. They simply were, vast and immovable, like monuments carved from darkness itself. Then the fear began. Council defense systems activated on instinct. Shield harmonics surged around the spire. Ancient technologies layered atop one another in panicked redundancy. Tactical displays bloomed across the chamber walls, each struggling to reconcile sensor input that contradicted every known law of faster-than-light physics. "No hyperspace wake," barked a military delegate from the Oryx Combine. "No energy bloom. They didn't arrive. They appeared." "That is not possible," snapped another. "Matter cannot translate without." "Scan results are confirmed," Kel said, forcing her voice steady despite the tremor in her tendrils. "They are using void-adjacent translation, a null vector insertion. There is no detectable entry point, a technology that did not leave a door open behind it." High Arbiter Zelvar recovered enough composure to straighten. "How many?" he demanded. The answer took several seconds to process. "Initial count, 200 capital-class vessels," Kel replied. "More emerging. Configuration suggests modular fleet architecture, each hull unique but integrated. 200 ships, enough to erase most regional powers, enough to unmake the council." Across the chamber, delegates reacted according to instinct. The insectoid Kareth clattered their mandibles in alarm. The Run Clades sat utterly still, ancestral memories of predator encounters rising unbidden. Even the ancient Aurelian observers, beings who had watched stars die, leaned forward in uneasy silence. A second transmission overrode the first. This one was not a chant. It was a heartbeat, a slow, rhythmic pulse embedded beneath the signal, translated automatically by council systems into a human biosignature. Alive, measured, controlled. Within the flagship Eidolon of Soul, Admiral Elena Reyes stood with her hands clasped behind her back, eyes fixed on a holographic projection of the council chamber. The image was ghostly and delayed by milliseconds, but clear enough to read the terror on alien faces. "They're smaller than I imagined," she murmured. Around her, the bridge was silent. Officers stood at their stations, faces illuminated by cool blue light. No one spoke unless necessary. Humanity had learned long ago that rage was loud, but precision was quiet. "Fleet status," Reyes said. All task groups phased in, replied Commander Okafor. Void anchors stable. No hostile targeting locks detected. They're stunned, Reyes said. As expected, Earth had taught them that lesson. When the Council fleets had descended on Sol decades earlier, they had done so with banners flying and doctrines polished by millennia of conquest. They expected humanity to break, to plead, to submit, to fracture along old national lines. Instead, humans had done something the galaxy had never seen. They had left, not in panic, not in defeat. They evacuated. Billions of lives funneled into generation arcs, sleeper flotillas, and deep space sanctuaries buried beyond conventional detection. Earth itself had been stripped to a shell, its cities hollowed, its infrastructure booby-trapped with false signatures and dying signals designed to scream extinction. The Council had bombarded a corpse and congratulated itself. External chatter spiking, Okafor said. Council attempting internal consensus. Defense fleets mobilizing, but FDL lanes are collapsing. Reyes allowed herself a thin smile. Humanity had not spent decades in the dark, merely learning how to move unseen. They had learned how to control movement. Void translation was not just travel, it was denial. Entire hyperspace corridors were being quietly severed, isolated by ships that existed half a step outside reality. No escape. Back in the Council chamber, chaos threatened to overwhelm decorum. "This is an act of war," shrieked a delegate from the Hesh Synod. "They have already violated Council space," another shouted. Zelvar raised his voice, struggling to reassert authority. "Silence. Defensive posture only. Do not provoke." His words were cut short as every display in the chamber shifted. The human fleet had not fired a single weapon. Instead, the outer sensor arrays of the spire went dark. Then the secondary relays. Then the tertiary backups. One by one, systems across Council-controlled space reported the same phenomenon. Communications intact, life support stable. But weapons platforms offline, targeting solutions erased as if they had never existed. A surgical disarmament. Kel stared at the cascading reports. "They're inside our infrastructure," she whispered. "Not hacking, overriding." "How?" demanded Zelvar. "Because we learned from you," Reyes thought, watching the data stream from her bridge. Humanity had studied every defeat, every loss, every genocide the galaxy politely called containment. They had learned that the Council did not fear destruction. It feared disruption. "High Arbiter," Tel said, voice barely audible. "They are not positioning for an assault." Zelvar's throat tightened. "Then what are they doing?" As if in answer, the human signal changed. The heartbeat faded, replaced by a single, steady tone. Visual feeds reactivated across the chamber, not showing the fleet, but Earth. Not the dead world the Council believed in. A living one. Clouds rolling over blue oceans. Green continents scarred, but breathing. Orbital habitats glittering like a crown of stars. The message resolved into text, stark and unmistakable. "You pronounced US dead. You were wrong." And for the first time since the fleet emerged from the void, the human ships began to move, slowly, deliberately, closing the distance. The celebration was over. The reckoning had begun. The message humanity never sent. The Grand Stellar Council chamber was silent in a way no vacuum could ever achieve. The image of Earth, alive, hung suspended above the central dais, its oceans turning beneath soft cloud cover, orbital habitats glinting like watchful eyes. No bombardment scars. No dead atmosphere. No extinction. The lie the Council had accepted so eagerly was unraveling in real time. High Arbiter Zelvar felt something unfamiliar coil in his core. Doubt. Across the chamber, delegates stared, some in awe, others in horror. Entire political philosophies had been built on the certainty that resistance was futile, that the Council's will was synonymous with survival. Humanity's continued existence did more than challenge that belief. It invalidated it. The human signal shifted again. The image of Earth faded, replaced by a single figure standing in a dimly lit chamber of steel and light. A woman in a dark uniform, no insignia beyond a simple emblem. soul encircled by broken chains. She did not shout. She did not posture. Representatives of the Galactic Council, Admiral Elena Reyes said calmly, her voice translated flawlessly into hundreds of languages. You declared us extinct 43 standard cycles ago. A pause, long enough to let the words settle. At the time, you believed it was mercy. A line item closed. A risk removed. Reyes stepped forward, her eyes steady. You were wrong. Behind her, the display shifted, archival footage drawn from humanity's own records. Earth skies burning. Cities evacuating under orbital fire. Families boarding vessels built in weeks, not years. Not chaos, but desperate coordination. We did not survive because we were stronger than you, Reyes continued. We survived because we refused to let extinction be quiet. The footage changed again. Human ships vanishing into uncharted dark. Asteroid habitats hollowed into sanctuaries. Children learning under artificial suns. Engineers building engines that conventional physics declared impossible because no one had bothered to ask what happened between dimensions. You taught us something invaluable, Reyes said. You taught us that the galaxy has rules, and that those rules are written by whoever remains. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Some delegates shifted uncomfortably. Others bristled. A run-clade rose, voice sharp with anger. You stand before us and accuse us of wrongdoing, yet you arrive with weapons unmatched by any known power. Do not pretend your hands are clean. Reyes inclined her head slightly. We aren't pretending. With a gesture, she brought up a new set of data, maps of hyperspace lanes flickering out across Council territory. We could have destroyed you when we arrived, she said. Our fleet is positioned to do so. Your defenses are neutralized. Your fleet's isolated. If this were about vengeance, you would already be dust. Zelvar felt a chill run through his elongated frame. The projections confirmed it. Every contingency he could imagine had already been accounted for. Then why are we still here? He demanded. Reyes looked directly at him. Because we remembered something you forgot. The display shifted once more, now showing dozens of alien worlds, small, underdeveloped, some on the brink of ecological collapse. Every one of these systems filed for protection, Reyes said. Every one was deemed non-essential to galactic stability. You called their losses unfortunate. Her voice hardened, just enough. We call that practice genocide with better vocabulary. A wave of outrage surged through the chamber. This is an insult to council authority, shouted a Hesh delegate. No, Reyes replied evenly. This is an audit. The word landed like a weapon. You built a civilization where extinction is a rounding error, she continued, where dangerous species are erased and the ledger balanced. Humanity does not accept that model. Behind her, the human fleet filled the void, silent and patient. We are not here to conquer you, Reyes said. We are here to change the definition of survival. Zelvar swallowed. And if we refuse? Reyes did not answer immediately. Instead, the display showed a final data set, Council Black Site coordinates, sterilization orders, extinction warrants stamped with ancient seals. Then the galaxy will learn what accountability looks like, she said softly. The chamber erupted in overlapping voices. Fear, rage, denial, bargaining. Through it all, Reyes waited. When the noise finally subsided, she spoke one last time. Humanity was declared dead because you believed we were alone, she said. We are not. Every species that fears becoming inconvenient now knows otherwise. She straightened, shoulders squared. Effective immediately, the Galactic Council's authority over extinction-level decisions is revoked. All such powers are suspended pending review under what we call the Continuance Accords. The term echoed through the chamber, already spreading across networks the Council no longer fully controlled. You will cooperate, Reyes concluded, not because we demand it, but because the alternative is a galaxy where your rules no longer protect you. The transmission ended. In the sudden quiet that followed, High Arbiter Zelvar understood the truth with devastating clarity. Humanity had not returned as conquerors. They had returned as judges. And judgment, once rendered, could not be undone. After the celebration, the galaxy did not burn. That, more than anything else, unsettled those who had once ruled it. In the cycles following humanity's return, no stars went dark from superweapons. No homeworlds cracked beneath orbital fire. The human fleet remained where it was, everywhere and nowhere, anchored in void-adjacent space, observing, measuring, intervening only when lines were crossed that had once been ignored. Extinction lines. The Grand Stellar Council still convened, but its chamber felt smaller now. The living star map overhead no longer represented authority. It represented accountability. Human observers stood at the periphery, silent, unarmed, and impossible to ignore. High Arbiter Zelvar presided over the first post-reckoning session with diminished regalia. His voice, once resonant with unquestioned command, carried a careful restraint. "The matter before us," he said, "is the ratification of the Continuance Accords." The words tasted like ash. The accords were deceptively simple. No sentient species could be declared extinct without multilateral review. No military action could target civilian evacuation routes. No developing world could be erased for the sake of stability. Violations would not be punished by war, but by isolation. FDL corridors closed. Trade severed. Influence dissolved. For empires built on expansion, it was a death sentence more terrifying than annihilation. Across the chamber, protests rose. "This undermines our sovereignty," hissed a delegate from the Oryx Combine. Humanity's representative did not raise their voice. "So did extinction," they replied. Beyond the council spire, the galaxy adjusted. On worlds once deemed expendable, human ships appeared without announcement. Terraforming arrays unfolded like mechanical flowers. Medical vessels treated populations that had never known off-world aid. Children of 100 species looked up at the same symbol painted on hulls and relief crates. Soul, encircled by broken chains. Humanity did not ask for tribute. They asked for records. Archives long sealed were opened. Extinction warrants surfaced. Cleansings reclassified as containment actions were dragged into the light. Entire political dynasties collapsed under the weight of their own history. Some resisted. A border empire attempted to test the new order, launching a punitive strike against a minor system beyond human patrol range. The attack never reached its target. Every ship involved lost FTL capability simultaneously, stranded in deep space as human void ships phased in around them. No shots were fired. The Empire sued for compliance within a cycle. Admiral Elena Reyes watched it all from the observation deck of the Eidolon of Sol. Her reflection stared back at her from the glass. Older than when she had last stood beneath Earth's sky, but steadier. "Do you think they'll ever forgive us?" Commander Okafor asked quietly. Reyes shook her head. "Forgiveness isn't the point." Humanity had learned, painfully, that survival was not enough. Earth had survived countless times, through ice ages, plagues, nuclear near misses. What almost ended them was the belief that someone else would decide whether they were worth saving. They would not allow that power to exist unchallenged again. On a small academic world near the Galactic Rim, a young alien historian named Selith recorded the first draft of what would become the new Standard Chronicle. His species had never faced extinction, but they had lived in fear of becoming irrelevant. He wrote, "Humanity did not return to rule. They returned to remember, for all of us." Selith paused, then added another line. "Where the Council saw balance, humans saw abandonment. As decades passed, the human fleet began to thin. Not because it was weakening, but because it was no longer needed everywhere at once. Void ships withdrew from stabilized regions, leaving behind monitoring beacons and shared infrastructure. The message was clear. Compliance was trust. Trust reduced oversight. Earth reopened its gates, not as a capital, but as a symbol. Delegations were invited to walk its rebuilt cities, to see the scars humanity had chosen not to erase. Ruins preserved alongside new growth. Memorials that named every lost evacuation convoy, every world that had gone silent before humanity could reach it. Some visitors wept. Others left in silence. High Arbiter Zelvar resigned quietly after overseeing the final transfer of extinction authority. In his final address, he spoke words that would be cited for centuries. "We believed we were stewards of order," he said. "We were curators of convenience. Humanity reminded us that order without mercy is merely efficient cruelty." On the day the last Council seal was amended under the Continuance Accords, the human fleet performed a single, galaxy-wide transmission. No threat, no proclamation, just a simple statement, repeated once. No one dies, unseen again. Then the void went still. Humanity did not vanish this time. They did not retreat into myth or darkness. They became something far more unsettling to a galaxy built on quiet erasures. They became the line extinction could no longer cross. And long after the Council celebration had faded into history, the galaxy remembered the moment it toasted Earth's demise and learned what it meant to be wrong.